Hi, I'm Tampa Mayor Bob Buckhorn, and this is my sidekick and partner and birthday boy, Jack Harris, and welcome back to another Mayor's Hour. We got a great show for you today. This is one of the highlights of the 2.5 years that we've been doing this, Jack.
Oh, yes.
We've done the Cigar Factory, which was special.
And we had to have a cigar.
Of course we had to. We have to taste the merchandise.
Yes, indeed.
But we are here today at Cigar City Brewing Company. And Jack, as you well know, Cigar City is one of Tampa's amazing success stories. This has started right here in Tampa. It is now the worldwide acclaimed brewery. They are winning awards everywhere. The whole craft beer movement has taken a foothold here, largely because of Joey Redner and Cigar City Brewing.
Yeah, this really was kind of the seed for the craft beer movement. I mean, it was going to happen, but they got on it first and made it explode, and it is all over the country now. I've done some traveling now, and you hear about Cigar City Brewing, and you find Cigar City beer, you find all of that everywhere.
Joey Redner, we are so proud of him. He's a native. He's our favorite son here from Tampa, and he's putting Tampa on the map in the craft beer industry.
Yep. And I'm just tickled to death that you decided we need to do something about beer in Tampa, because we're big in beer in Tampa.
Well, you know what, Jack? Whether it's the food trucks, whether it's the whole foodie movement, whether it's the craft beer explosion, I mean, that helps us be branded as a cool city, as a hip city.
Yes.
And it helps us to do what we're trying to do, which is attract young people to come and be a part of it. This is cool stuff.
Oh, this place is alive on the weekend. You can imagine. It explodes. It's unbelievable.
Well, stay with us. We'll be right back with the founder of Cigar City, Joey Redner. He's going to tell us the story of what we're looking at here, what all this is, how you make it. It's going to be a great, great show. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Johnny, you're making me proud. That's a good thing. Let's fight to the death, all right? All right. 2, 3. Wow. Rapids will fully inflate and you're ready to enter the water.
Delicious. Fantastic.
Delicious. Welcome back to another segment of the Mayor's Hour. We're here at Cigar City Brewery. Jack, we've got the masterminds. We've got the CEO and the founder, Joey Redner. And we also have the brewmaster, Wayne Wombles, right?
Correct.
They're going to tell us exactly how this started, Joey, what is going on here, how the beer's made. I mean, you guys have just exploded onto the craft beer scene, and people are raving about you. I mean, Jack and I travel the country all the time. Every time we're in a bar, we're asking, where's the Cigar City? Have you heard of Cigar City? When are you going to get Cigar City? So I figure I'm doing my part to elevate you guys.
Oh, we're pushing it everywhere.
Much appreciated.
So, Joey, tell us how this all started.
Cigar City Brewing as a company really started out of my desire to, I traveled a lot. I got to see the beer scenes in a lot of other cities. And so my desire to kind of have some of that here in my hometown. So I kind of got the idea in my head, and it slowly coalesced over a few years. And I really was waiting for someone else, and I was going to go work for that guy. I just learned everything I could about beer, and then it wasn't happening. No one opened a brewery. So then I started researching, well, why is it not happening? Is it too expensive? Is it too hard to get to market? So I in my research, started developing a business plan. And then eventually, looking at all the information, I said, I think I can do this. And the plan was to take a lot of what I'd seen in breweries I liked in other parts of the country, other parts of the world, and recreate some of those things here. So that's really was the impetus for it.
That's amazing. And how long ago was this?
We actually brewed our first beer in March of 2009, our first large batch of beer in March of 2009.
And what kind of production do you have now?
We're probably a little over, we have the capacity to do a little over 60 times what we did in the first year.
Holy smokes.
That's in only 4 years, and you've grown there. And not only, it's a massive operation here on, I think that's Spruce Street here, out here, on Spruce Street, just to the west of Dale Mabry. A massive brewery operation here, but you can't get near this place on the weekend. In fact, just about any night, but particularly on the weekends, you can't get near this. This has become the hottest hangout for young people on the weekends, too.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is because we're a working brewery and we do have the tasting room right there. You can go see it. You can see people actually laboring to make the product that you're enjoying, and I think that it kind of develops a connection. It's whereas opposed to it just being a widget coming out of a factory somewhere. People can come here and they literally can see the guys making the beer, and I think that adds an element that some other places may not have.
What does a brewmaster do, Wayne?
Well,
Jack and I have drank a lot of beer in our life. I don't think that qualifies. Matter of fact, last weekend I went back to my fraternity house and it reminded me just how much beer I drank 30 years
Penn
ago.
State.
Yeah, that was not a pretty sight. And I took my daughters. So what does a brewmaster do? How did you learn how to make this great beer?
I started off home brewing back in the early 90s and just became obsessed with it, and started going around visiting other breweries, and happened to run into a gentleman who actually, through my conversations with him, had enough faith in me to bring me in as an apprentice. And then he walked away after about 6 months of my apprenticeship and allowed me to take over a small brewery that he was doing contract work for. And so I've been doing this probably since about 1996, somewhere along there, commercially. In the beginning, I did everything for this company. Designing the recipes, ordering raw materials, making the beer, cellar work, everything. But now I don't brew very much. I don't do cellar work very much. A lot of my work is more based upon attaining raw materials, designing recipes and concepts, reaching out to other breweries to produce collaborative beers, bringing back information from Master Brewers Association events and national events that we can employ in the brewery here. So my role has changed pretty drastically compared to where I started.
A couple minutes ago, Jack, Wayne and I were off air, and he was showing me the hops that they've got. And, tell us how this process works.
To be able to pick hops?
Well, to pick hops, and how's the beer manufactured? I mean, it really is a science. They have a laboratory.
The whole production process. So we have to have a sugar source. Our sugar source is barley usually. Sometimes it can be other things like wheat or rye. And it's just basically a seed, so it has to be germinated, which you would do to, like maybe you did it to a corn kernel when you're in elementary school, wrap it up in a wet paper towel, and then you start to see the green growth. So that's where your starch source is. Then after you get your starch source, they dry the grain out pretty rapidly to be able to stop the growth, to maintain the starch. Some grains are malted at different temperatures to create different flavors. But anyway, that's where you get your sugar source. So we take that and we add it to water between 150 and 158 degrees Fahrenheit. And we hold that temperature for 30 to 60 minutes. This allows enzymes to convert the sugar that's in the grain into shorter chain sugars. So it goes from 12 chain to about 3 to 4 chain sugars in order for the yeast to be able to convert the sugar to ethanol. During the time that we're extracting the sugars, we also add hops to the boil kettle, which adds bitterness and aroma to the beer and helps to round out the flavor of the beer, so it's just not one sweet thing.
The aroma, how do you add that?
The aroma comes from both the malt, the yeast, it comes from the hops. It's very complex. It can be taken from multiple things. Yeah. But in the end, the aroma is a result of the hops, the yeast byproducts, and the malt that you put in, and what's left after the process of scrubbing, which takes place during fermentation. So actually, we will hop the beers after fermentation sometimes to be able to some of the beers to be able to get even more aroma in the beers than we would just normally have had we not dry hopped them post-fermentation.
How long does this process take from start to finish?
It depends. If from beginning to end, most of our beers take anywhere from 12 to 14 days. But some of our longer projects have taken as much as 14 months. When you get into that area, now you're talking about barrel aging product, and actually literally taking beer and putting it into a wooden barrel like these behind us, where oxidation takes place. The beer is also picking up wood sugars. It's also picking up maybe liquor that's been in that particular barrel before, say bourbon, maybe even wine, and just adding more complexity. Oxidation, that process alone, will add even more character and depth to beers as well. There are a lot of variables.
How do you decide which blend goes to market?
We have designated what we feel like are true to brand determinations, definitions, and when we deem that a certain product is out of that particular definition, then we decide we're not going to put it on the market.
And so how many different products do you guys have now?
During the course of the year, we probably do a steady, I'd say 30 different beers, but we do one-offs. What we mean by a one-off is we may do a very small batch of something, 5 gallons, 10 gallons. And that's sort of the process of how we determine what's sort of going to be the next arrow in the quiver is you give it to people in the tasting room and they let you know if they want more of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like politics. They'll tell you right away.
I'm thinking that you all are kind of the, I don't know, thinking of something comparable, the Ford Motor Company of beer brewing. I mean, you kind of got it cranked up, got it started and everything.
I've always looked at it because I'm sort of looking, I think a lot of what happened is we did not really have much of a craft beer brewing scene in the area, and there was a lot of breweries all over the country that I really admired, and so I was trying to emulate a lot of what they were doing. So I see it more as like we're trying to be mini breweries. It's changed now. There's a lot more breweries coming into Tampa, and I'm really happy about that. Because it allows the entire scene to sort of evolve and develop its own feel. I think in the beginning, we were trying to be all the breweries we didn't have.
Yeah.
So we were creating a lot of different products, whereas most breweries tend to specialize. They have 4 or 5, maybe 6. Maybe if they have a lot, maybe they have 10 brands. We've probably done over 500 different unique beers. Now, not all of those then become production beers, but we're putting a lot. We're prolific, I think, in many ways because we don't have much of or we didn't have much of a brewing scene.
We developed by standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, definitely.
And during that process of standing up there, we developed our own style, and that's what we bring to the market.
And you get new ideas too. You take something that inspired you and you go your own direction with it.
We've got about a minute left in this segment. You've also gone into the restaurant business using beer as sort of the basis of this, and matching foods and the types of beer, and I guess cooking with beer. Mm-hmm. Where is it, and when are you coming downtown?
Somebody always wants to know.
The Brew Pub really came out
I'm relentless about downtown. You guys would kill it in downtown.
The Brew Pub kind of came out of had I had the money. It's a little more expensive actually to start a brew pub than it is to start a production brewery, just from a staffing standpoint and the space you need. You need to be, we're kind of tucked behind a main road. You sort of need to have a little bit more foot traffic. So I'd always wanted to do a food and beer pairing, and I thought it would go well. But it wasn't something we could really do out of the gate. And then once we could, it was really sort of kismet that we ended up in North Tampa, which is where we are, the Carrollwood, Northdale area. As far as when we're going downtown, probably not anytime soon, at least not as a brew pub.
All right, well,
it's a lot to manage.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the best part of the Mayor's Hour. This is where Jack and Joey and I get to start drinking. To be a mayor is a wonderful thing. That I get to drink. It's 11:30 in the morning.
Holy guacamole.
And we're going to start drinking beer. Joey, what are we drinking?
Okay, so we have what we call our 4 core beers, the 4 beers we do the most of, and in order from your left over to your right, we have Florida Cracker, which is a wheat beer, a Belgian-style white ale, and
that's what I like.
Yeah, it's named in honor of the Cracker Cowboys, the Florida Crackers. To its right is the Hotter Than Helles Lager, and it's just a play on the German word for pale or light is Helles, and it's kind of it's an unfiltered lager. It's probably the closest thing we do to your mass-produced beers. It's still pretty full of body and has a little bit more hops than would be usual in a beer of that style. But probably the most easy drinking, if that's what you're looking for, of what we do. And we call it Hotter Than Helles because it's a good lawnmower beer. It's good to drink when it's hotter than Helles outside. The Maduro Brown Ale is named for the cigar wrapper. Obviously, we're looking to Tampa's heritage when we
using Cigar City.
Right, when we look for names. So the Maduro wrapper it tends to be a nice dark brown. So we thought that resonated nicely. So it's an English style brown ale that's brewed with a little bit of oatmeal, gives it a little bit more body. It's got nice fruity esters, and you also get a little bit of chocolate, even hints of coffee in it, and a lot of caramel. And then the last beer we have in the lineup is our Jai Alai IPA, named after the sport that was once popular here in Tampa. I'm sure you guys were able to make it out to the Jai Alai Fronton when it was here. I did too, and sometimes when I wasn't supposed to be there. But really always loved the sport, and always, it was such an intense game, and it to me that game was sort of like a nice symbol for the Jai Alai. Sorry, for the IPA style. It's a really aggressive, sort of in-your-face style of a beer. A ton of hops in it, but ours we've always tried to, again, carry a little bit of Tampa and Florida in it, so we use hops that specifically give it a tropical expression. You can get mango and papaya. You're still going to get a lot of grapefruit bitterness, but it goes a little more fruity than most IPAs would. And so that's the last beer in the lineup there.
Yeah, that's so neat. You got the Jai Alai beer. I mean, I remember the great days of Tampa Jai Alai, and you just kind of keep that alive with something like that. And plus, when people get it around the country, they say, "What does that mean?"
Yeah,
First of all, they mispronounce it.
Usually, Jai Alai,
Jai Alai beer.
From Ybor City.
Exactly.
So go ahead, Jack.
Well, I'm going to start with this one because I'm familiar. Well, no, I want to try this. I haven't done that one. I know that one. And
there used to be a brewery,
I don't
Buckhorn
want to be
Brewery.
left out.
no, you shouldn't be.
When I was a kid growing up, cheers.
Here's
to Cigar City.
Continued success.
Absolutely. All right.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That might replace this. I don't know. Which one
Get a
is
new
this?
favorite? This is the Hotter Than Helles lager. So it's a Munich-style Helles lager.
It's good to be the mayor.
I thought you were going to say it's good to the last drop.
I'm going to get to the last drop in just a second.
I know what you mean.
Then I'm going to go home and take a nap. So which one's the most popular?
This is our top seller, the Jai Alai IPA. It's probably trending towards 60% of our production.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How do you have a job where you get to drink all day? I mean,
Sometimes I wake up and I expect the fantasy to stop, but it keeps going.
Oh, it certainly does. And that, I love the names you've come up with, too, and they really carry on Tampa traditions, too. I mean, with the Maduro wrapper beer, and then, of course, the Jai Alai and Florida Cracker. And
we look to that.
We
have a Jose Marti beer. Jose Marti was, he's known as the Cuban. George Washington.
Cuba.
We have a beer coming out, Don Gavino. Don Gavino was the first person. He came down here looking for guavas, and he was the first person to sort of plot out what became Ybor City. He was actually hired by Vicente Ybor to lay out, Ybor City.
Oh, I just
so we have
learned
a beer
little
coming out.
Tampa Bay history.
Yeah,
That's good.
we have a beer coming out in his honor. So yeah, we try to. You have this little beer can or a beer bottle. You can tell people something.
Yeah.
And I've always been fascinated with Tampa history. I really love the city that I grew up in, and I've got this soapbox, so I'm gonna I can point people's attention to something, and that's something I
Maybe
want people
someday
to
there'll be a Buckhorn
consider.
Brew.
I think you need to put my picture right there.
Right there?
I'm not sure how it would sell, but my mother would buy a lot of it.
There you go. There you go.
There actually was a brewery in St. Louis years ago called Buckhorn. It was Buckhorn beer.
Really?
Yeah, it tastes like crap, but it was. My dad bought it for me for my 18th birthday. He bought me a case. It went out of business, and then so.
And back then, by the way, you could drink.
Yeah, I
at
could
the
drink
age
when
of
I was 18. Yes, yes.
They moved that to 21 at some point, unfortunately.
So, is there much of a difference in the taste, fresh out of the keg versus in the can?
One of the reasons we were in bottles and we switched to cans is and you're seeing a lot of craft brewers move to cans, is you do an analysis of the two packaging options, 12-ounce glass versus 12-ounce can. It's just a superior package, especially if, like us, the beer that you're doing the most of is an IPA. The #1 enemy of really hoppy beers like IPAs is light. You can take a hoppy beer like this, put it out in the sun, of which we have plenty of in Florida, and you can start tasting it get light struck, that skunky flavor, in a minute or two.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this takes that completely out of the equation. You also have far less, well, not far less, you have 0 oxygen ingress unless there's a defect in the seam, whereas with a Crown you're going to get some oxygen ingress, and you don't want oxidization in a fresh beer. It's kind of okay in your barrel-aged or older beers, but in a fresh beer you want it as little oxygen as possible. So we made the hard switch to cans because we just truly believe it's a better package for
Plus,
beer.
for those who recall those days, you can shoot a can, you can't shoot a bottle.
Plus, you can also take it to the
Probably
beach. You
did
can
that
take
at
it on the
Penn State.
boat. You know, for an active outdoor place, the can also makes a lot of sense.
We're wrapping up this segment. Let me tell you something. We are so proud of Joey Redner and so proud of Cigar City. They are putting Tampa on the map. And Joey, congratulations. This really is a Tampa treasure, and you deserve a lot of credit for doing this. And Jack and I are going to stick around for a little bit longer, drink some more of his beer. But stay with us. We're going to a video about another great craft beer manufacturer here in Tampa. But this is the guy that started it all. Cheers, Joey.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We're in Cold Storage Craft Brewery's tasting room, also known as Florida Avenue Ales. We're located right in Seminole Heights. Not only are we right off the interstate, but this neighborhood's really up and coming, and it's starting to become a destination for a lot of people to, bring up their families. I actually live here and work here, which is fantastic. We get a lot of people from the neighborhood that walk up, ride their bikes, and where we're located on Florida Avenue, if you continue north, we've got a lot of other great restaurants and bars as well. And so people, they start here for happy hour and then they go someplace else for dinner, and it's really become a destination for people. One of the biggest things that people say is it's so comfortable. When you walk in here, it's like coming into somebody's family room, or what I say, if you're from up north, it's like being in your uncle's basement. And so people come here, they really just like to chill out, watch TV, play games, and of course enjoy the beer. We have a slew of events every week. On Tuesday nights we do Team Trivia, which is a hosted trivia event. You come out, play, answer some questions, win free beer. Thursday nights we do open mic. Friday nights we always have live music, and then we also do a lot of charity benefits and different things. The Girls Love Beer happy hours, things of that nature, food trucks, all that good stuff. I get calls all the time for people even, doing either private parties or benefits for different things. Like this weekend we have a benefit for a friend of the brewery whose cousin has contracted brain cancer, and so we're doing a 4-band concert, and donations and proceeds from the brewery tasting room sales actually will go directly to him. We do tours on Saturdays at 2 o'clock, and then we also do it by appointment as long as they just call us here at the tasting room. Let us know, how many people, when they're looking to come, and we'll set it up. Glad to do so. Today, we've got a retail server training. These are the girls from Hooters in the Pinellas County area, and now that they're carrying our product, they came over to learn about it, taste it, and understand how to sell it better in their stores. We've found that this is a real benefit for us in selling the product, is really getting people into the tasting room, talking about the history of the brewery itself, telling them about the beers, and then of course letting them sample it, because when they go back to their restaurants, they can talk about it with conviction. They know exactly what they're saying. I've tasted it, here's my favorite, things like that. So my favorite beer right now is our blueberry. We use natural blueberries, so it's got a very strong nose, but it's not real sweet. It's very refreshing, and it's great for summer. I absolutely love my job. We're a small business, and when you're part of a small business, what that means is you really get to be a part of growing it and put your fingerprint on what happens here. Beer community is a wonderful community. We're all friends, and watching the growth together has just been fantastic.
We're about 3 years old right now. We bought all the equipment from Busch Gardens years ago when they used to have the tours there. So we're truly local. What we do a little differently than most is we brew beers that are conducive to the climate that we live in. We're trying to brew beers that are, have a full flavor profile, but are a little bit lighter in body for the heat and humidity that we live in. Currently, we're in the Tampa Bay area. We almost have the entire state covered. We got authorized for Disney World recently. So we have an ale, a golden ale, which is our flagship. We have a blueberry beer, an IPA, and a brown ale out right now. My favorite beer is our golden ale. I'm out in the market all the time, and I sample the blueberry, the IPA, and all of them, our brown ale. I always go back to our golden ale. It's my favorite. It's the smoothest, it's easy drinking. A lot of people are starting to call that Florida in a glass now, which is exactly what we were kind of going for. It has a little bit of citrus at the end of it when you taste it, so mine's our golden ale. We're currently at about 3,000, maybe 3,500 barrels this year. A microbrewery is generally 50,000 and below. We're expanding. We've already expanded 50%, as you can see here. We're looking for more tanks right now, more kegs as we go on. We're growing pretty fast, as is the whole craft beer market. A crafted beer is just something that's not mass produced. So it's more of a handmade would be a good way that I describe craft. We preach local, local, local. Everything's becoming more localized. Therefore, you know, we're actually Florida boys. Gordon and David are our brewers. These tanks right here you see are the fermenters. So basically when they brew the beer over here, they go into these tanks and they ferment. Once they're fermenting, like for example the blueberry beer, when it's sitting in there fermenting, we dump blueberries in, fresh blueberries, and it purees. That's why when you taste our blueberry beer, it's very, very aromatic, but then it drinks like a beer. But depending on the style of the beer, that they ferment for anywhere from 11 to 17 days, depending on what we're brewing. At that point, they go into these tanks, which are conditioning tanks. So it sits in here for basically 3 days and just mellows out a little bit. And then they do what they're doing right now today is kegging the beer. From the kegs, it goes into the cooler on the trucks. We've built a nice reputation of being very consistent with our beers and available, and we want to maintain that. Some microbreweries, you know, it's a difficult task to try to, you know, get your beer out as fast as you can, but keep the quality there. Our IPA all won gold medals this year at the Florida Beer Championships, and that's all due to David. We're very proud of that. It's something we don't set out to do. We're just trying to really make good beer again for our state that we live in, but those gold medals are kind of nice. Florida's a hotbed for craft beer right now in the whole country. Tampa's the hotbed of Florida.
Welcome back to the Mayor's Hour. We are going from a small craft beer manufacturer, Cigar City, to a very, very large international company. We're here at the Yuengling beer manufacturing plant in Tampa, and it's located right near the University of South Florida. It is a long time, very well-known American manufactured beer out of Pennsylvania. And, you know, this obviously is a little bit bigger than what we just left, Jack.
And larger than what we saw there. And the neat thing is the only place Yuengling is brewed is here in Pottsville, PA, nowhere else.
Yeah. Well, joining us today is plant manager Andy Pickerel. Andy, thanks for having us here.
Pleasure.
Tell me what we got here. I mean, this is a big facility.
It is indeed. We have three main lines. We have a keg line, which comes through in front of. We have a bottle line, and we have a can line. So we're brewing approximately 1 million barrels a year at the moment from this plant. Then up in Pottsville, it's about another 1.8 to 2 million barrels. So very roughly 3 million barrels total production for Yuengling.
And Yuengling has sort of enjoyed, and correct me if I'm wrong, a resurgence.
Yes,
I mean, it's become very, very popular now. I mean, it was always one of those old mainline beers like Schlitz and Miller. but all of a sudden it's become hip again. So what do you guys attribute that to?
Well, Yuengling is the largest American-owned brewery.
Right.
It's a family-owned brewery. I've got the pleasure of working for Dick Yuengling, who is now 5th generation who owned the brewery. His great-great-grandfather started the brewery in 1829 up in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. So I think the heritage and the fact we make good beer has added to it.
That's great.
That's my son's favorite. He's a Yuengling drinker all the time. I mean, only for a year. He's 22 now, but
He's
that
been
was what
drinking
he
a little
started
bit longer
with.
than that, yeah.
It might be a possibility that we didn't know about there. But how did we end up with Yuengling here? How did Yuengling decide to end up here after being in Pottsville?
Well, in the late 90s, Dick Yuengling started expanding on sales in Pennsylvania, started moving out into East Coast. And Stroh's had a brewery for sale down in Tampa.
I remember Stroh's.
Yeah.
And basically Dick bought the Stroh Brewery. I mean, Florida's a great beer state, so it's an ideal place to have a brewery. Then he moved up the East Coast through South and North Carolina, across to Georgia, we're a little bit into Alabama and Tennessee. So now we're contiguous really down from New York all the way down through Florida.
Had it been primarily a regional beer?
Yes, yeah, very much so, yeah. It was very much a Pennsylvania regional beer.
And was it when he expanded down here he expanded that footprint?
Yes, yep.
And by the way, a little more history here. Before Stroh's, it was built as the Schlitz Brewery.
Yeah, that's what we were doing. I'd forgotten about the Stroh's portion of it.
Yeah, from Schlitz to Stroh's to Yuengling.
And Stroh's is no longer in business.
Stroh's, unfortunately, is no longer in business.
How many people do you employ here?
We have 85 permanent people here.
That's great.
So we're actually a fairly productive operation.
What is the difference now between the canning and bottling? I assume it's the same product that goes into there.
Yes, it is.
Is it different for what you do in the kegs for the tap?
Not at all. No, not at all.
It's all the same product. It's
all
just
the
how
same,
you package
same
it.
product, yep. Now, traditionally, you don't pasteurize draft beer, so it has a shorter shelf life.
Yeah.
Whereas our cans and bottles are pasteurized, so they have a 17 to 20 week shelf life.
What's involved in the pasteurization project?
It's a short heat treatment to stabilize the beer and protect against any microorganisms being in the beer. So there are natural microorganisms that enjoy living in beer, and you need to chase them out and make sure they're not there.
And the distribution from here, where all do you distribute from this?
Here we go as far west as Memphis, Tennessee. We go through Georgia, North and South Carolina, Alabama.
And is it all used in refrigerated trucks? I mean, you keep it cold the whole time?
When we're sending kegs long distance, it's refrigerated reefers. Most, if we're going long haul, we go overnight, as opposed to during the day. But no, it's not all refrigerated, no.
Now, we just left Cigar City Brewery, and you were telling us off camera that, you know, you've sort of mentored them and helped them. Are you seeing that resurgence in the craft beer demand cut into market share for some of the large brewers, or are people buying both?
I think it's cutting into the share of particularly the premium lights from the large brewers. We see them as complementary. I think they generate excitement around beer, which we think is good for us and good for them.
Yeah, that's what I've read about, that basically the craft beers has introduced a lot of young people to beer, period, and they ultimately end up picking something like a Yuengling or one of the other basic old beers. I mean, they move away from the craft beer at some point, and craft beer becomes more of a party thing, and then like they'll drink the Yuengling all week or whatever it is on a day-to-day thing, which is a good thing for you guys to be doing that.
So.
But now you all, you all are national now, right? All over?
We are in 14 states.
14 states. I thought it was farther than that.
East Coast. We've got in Pennsylvania. We moved across to Ohio about a year and a half ago for the first time. We're Maryland, New York, New Jersey, Delaware.
And any plans to expand to the rest of the country?
I think that's fairly likely over time. It's more around transport. Dick's a very cautious and traditional owner, and he wants to make sure we can service the retail very well before we expand. So he wants to make sure we're capable of meeting market demand before we move further. So
now, is that a function of where your plants are located?
yes.
Okay, so you would have to have the equivalent of this west of the Mississippi to serve the...
That's absolutely right, yes. Yeah.
Expand, and that's quite an investment.
Who are the big regional brewers like yourself? I mean, obviously, you know, Budweiser and all those are international brands. Where do you, in the Midwest and in the West, Who are the big regional guys?
Sierra Nevada,
Oh, yeah.
they're a big brewery. New Belgium,
Okay.
another one. Both are moving into Asheville up in North Carolina fairly
Wow.
soon as well. They're building breweries there.
Now, is Sam Adams still considered a niche beer?
No, I think Sam Adams is I argue it's a national beer. They make a lot of beers you call craft.
Right.
We are just slightly larger than Sam Adams,
Right.
so they're very, very comparable size.
How much different is it from, given that you know how the craft beers are created, how much different is the Yuengling product from the craft beers in the manufacture of it, in the time it takes and everything? What similarities are
Not
there?
much. I mean, I would argue some of our beers could be classified as craft beers. For example, we make a porter, which is a very traditional beer, very long heritage. And porter, I would argue, probably is a craft beer. Now, craft in the past meant small and boutique. Now it's getting a lot bigger than that. I mean, there's some, and there are very fine craft beers. No,
I got a real important question for you.
Yes.
You're from Britain?
I am indeed. Many years ago.
How does American beer compare to
Good question.
compared to some of the great beers from Europe?
Yuengling, I think, makes some excellent beers.
Now, you don't have to say that just because
not at all. Not at all. No. I've been enjoying beer since I was 18, not 21, because in England you could drink early. Now, we make some very flavoursome beers that compare very well with British beer.
Really?
Very well indeed, yeah. And with German beer as well.
Because the Brits have some pretty good stuff when you hit the pubs all around the UK.
All right. We're going to be right back. Once again, Jack and I are going to have one of the most difficult parts of this, more beer. We're drinking again. Stay with us.
Got to do it.
I know. I got to start eating something because otherwise the rest of my day is going to be shot.
Is it noon yet?
Yeah. So stay with us. We're going to sample some Yuengling. Jack's going to fall asleep. I'm going to keep on going, and we'll be right back. Jack, we're back for another segment of the Mayor's Hour. We are in Frankenstein's lab right now. This is where the magic happens. And joining us right now is Jim Helmke. He's the Director of Operations. Tell us what we got here. This is pretty unique. Obviously, we see the beer here. We're not going to drink all this, I promise.
I hope not.
Yeah. But tell us,
that's been in my refrigerator a whole lot. That's my son's choice right over there.
So tell us what this is.
What this is basically, there's two types of tasting in brewing. One is a formal where you sit down. We'll use that when we compare our beers from plant to plant, all right? The other one is based on the idea, it goes back. Brewing, I don't know if you're aware of, it's the world's second oldest profession.
Politics
This
is the
probably
first, huh?
go, I would imagine, politics.
We're
Well, no,
prosecuting
I
the
wasn't
same
thinking
thing.
about
Yeah, but it
it.
could be the same thing.
Wasn't
Tied
going
with
to
that
mention
other
who was
one.
the first. But it's based on the idea that the brewer's best labbers really is nose and taste. We have a lot of very complicated equipment, but ultimately, what we need to do is be able to provide a good product to the customer. What you see here are at that end, you see the things which we use to make beer, the ingredients, all right? And if you want to just take a cup, if you want to, and show you what you do, what we'll do is once a week, we start at the end, you start at the lightest and go to the heaviest first, so you don't ruin your taste buds. Just pour a little bit, that's the water which we use, okay? You pour it a little bit and taste it. Just a taste. This is not drinking, it's tasting. They're different things. Okay?
Okay.
And then you just taste it, see if it's okay, and then you pour it out. And then you...
That's unusual tasting water.
It's carbonated water.
That's right.
It's been carbonated. It's
That's
the
water.
water which we use. Any water we want to make beer with shouldn't have any oxygen in it. So we bubble CO2 through it, and it becomes like carbonated water. Okay, but there you can see water. The next one that you have here is the taste of our CO2. We collect CO2, and this is what we use to carbonate it, and there can be off taste in the CO2. So you bubble it through water. And then the other raw material next to that is we will use syrup in some of our products, special brewer's syrup. This one should be just a little bit sweet, but other than that, have no taste or aroma to it.
I didn't realize you could do all these things to water.
Oh, you can do a lot to water. Absolutely, it's the heart of beer.
Now, what's been done to that?
That has a little bit of syrup has been put
Oh,
into
okay.
it. You see, this is a brewing syrup that you see here, and just a little bit is put in so that if there are any off tastes in that syrup, it might show up in the beer. We can sense it. Here is the corn grits, what we use, and
Corn grits?
yeah.
Like what we eat down here in the South?
Well, I hate it too, but yes, I mean, it's very similar to what you use to make cornmeal out of, but it's slightly different. They're called brewer's grits, and they're used in some of the products to make a lighter beer that lasts longer.
And is it grown like this, or do you have to add things to it?
No, this is just, we purchase this from corn suppliers.
Okay.
So
And it's brewed.
what we'll do just to make sure is just smell it, make sure it smells like corn grits, and sometimes take a little pinch and chew it up. This is the malt which we use. That's really the central part of making beer. And you can smell that and taste that. And we do that just to verify that, because this is a natural product, it's
Oh, yeah, I can
possibility to get mold or something like that.
Yeah, I was born with the kind of nose. I ought to be able to get a great job
Okay,
for
well,
this with
that's
a nose
good.
like mine.
And then after that, we taste all of the products. We taste beer that's been sat around for a while. We hold it for 30, 60, 90 degrees to see how it's going to age, okay? But also, every batch of beer that we make, we taste, is tasted, and then it's formally tasted by everybody in the plant. It goes from the lightest to the darkest. Here's our light lager, here's our premium, here's our lager, here's an example of our black and tan. Now, beer tasting is different. You might have seen people tasting coffee or tea where they put it in their mouth, they slosh it around and spit it out. Beer you got to drink. You've got to drink it, okay? Because bitterness is one of the characteristic tastes of beer, and your bitterness receptacles to taste bitters in the back of your tongue. So the only way you can judge the bitterness of the beer
Swallow it.
is to swallow it.
I hate when that happens.
It's part of the job. So all we do is simply, if you want to take, and you just go down, take a little bit of beer like that. I'll show you how to taste this beer. Okay.
You swirl
Swirl it
like
around. Then you smell it. Because beer should have aroma, it should have a slight hoppiness characteristic.
that? Oh, yeah.
I went
you
back to
smell
my fraternity house last weekend. It smelled like this.
Oh, yeah, well,
The-
mine
the
used to
whole
smell
place-
like this.
the whole
Yeah, the whole
place
place
did.
smelled like this.
Oh, that's good.
And then you taste it, and then you
That's
just
crisp.
adjust it.
I like
It's
that.
I like
crisp.
that.
It's this is our light beer.
And I'm a light beer drinker. I like that. That's great.
It has some character. It's a good light beer. It's got a little bit more character than most light beers that you find.
Now let me make sure that
Yeah,
what
just
I
double
have
check, make sure that
Double
that's
check.
okay. All
is
right.
okay here.
Because God forbid something happens, so you better check. Better
And then
check
as you
again
go
just to make
along,
sure.
this will
Yep,
be another
that's right.
example of the light, and you do the same thing. This is out of a can. Now the can should not make any difference. And what we're looking for, any anomalies, anything that might have happened inadvertently in the process.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
You see
beer.
different?
It's a little bit different taste.
This is our premium beer. This is a beer that we make it, but we don't market it in Florida.
Really?
It is very similar to, say, the mass market. If you pour it out, you see it's clear.
Do you have any of the big 24 ounces for him?
We probably have some in the warehouse.
What do they call
yeah.
the Schlitz? Remember Schlitz used to make those big old slug of a can?
We've got
Yeah.
some big cans, yeah. We don't make that here. The 24-ounce can filler is
Those
actually
huge
in
things.
Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
but we do distribute it here. This is a beer, it's very, very popular in our traditional area, but when we came into the Florida market, this is very difficult. I mean, it's a very crowded lager market with a lot of the mass market brewers. So people have been asking us to get that here, please. We produce it, we make cans, send it up north, and then that is also going to be blended in with a porter, which we don't have an example of, very darker, to make our black and tan.
You know what I have? The problem I have with cans like is in Florida is they get warm too fast.
Oh, they do. They heat up very
They really
quickly.
do. They heat up quick.
Unlike, yeah.
So then this is our traditional lager. That's our biggest selling beer.
Of course, from Penn State, I wouldn't think you guys would have it around that long.
No, it never stayed
Were you
too
at
long.
Penn State?
Yeah, I'm at
Warm.
Penn State. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I spent 4 years drinking Rolly Rock, and because it was right down the road from
Right,
us.
I know. Yeah, it's just in Latrobe. And this is our main brand. This is the real heart of our major product.
Oh, that's good. That is.
Thank you.
I like that one.
I like it too.
So do you do this all day?
No. No.
I was going to say, how do you get any work done?
No.
I'm going to go back to the office and I'm going to take a nap and then.
Well, that's, yes, that's,
I can see him.
You're the mayor,
No, I
you
gotta
can do
go to
that.
work and drink all
I got to
day.
drink again.
yeah, you can do that. So, and then finally you get to the black and tan, which is it is a blend of this lager and then the Yuengling porter, which very few people realize Yuengling is probably the oldest and the largest producer of porter on the planet Earth.
Tell me the difference between this and a Guinness.
Several differences. The grist bill, which we call it, the mixture of malt, the type of malts, and all will be a little bit different. The major difference is that Guinness actually does not carbonate. It doesn't put carbonate. It puts nitrogen in it, and we don't do that. We
Is that just too expensive for when you mass produce?
it's not. It's just this is a different type of taste. Guinness is a stout. This is a blend of a porter, which is a very old. Porter was the first industrial beer in Britain. It was named after, because it was like food, and the porters that carried everything around in those days would drink a lot of it. So it became.
When you have the light beer, it's fewer calories than the others. How do they manage to keep the calories out or bring the calories down?
You adjust the grits that you used here. You know, you adjust the amount of malt that you put in, and by doing that, you adjust the amount that malt. You know, goes into it's just like a big kitchen. All right, you cook it at a certain temperature, and you turn all the starch into sugars, fermentable sugars.
Yeah.
And then the yeast takes the sugar and turns it into alcohol. Well, to make a light beer, you just put a little bit less in it, basically.
But it
just
brings,
less alcohol, brings the alcohol and calories down.
Taste
It
to
does,
as well.
yes, yeah. That's the challenge because there's less in there.
Yeah.
There are fewer calories, but there's less of everything else as well. So typically, the challenge of making a light beer is to make a light beer that
It actually
has
tastes
a little
good,
bit
yeah.
taste. Right.
Well, Jim, thank you.
Okay.
Jack's going to go back to drinking.
Okay, Jack.
Well, I didn't
Jack
try
should
this one.
Probably, if you've
I
got
gotta
time, taste
try
one
this
of these. This is our beer that we taste. This is the beer the customer gets. This is before the final stage. All right, this is the beer that came out of aging. Okay, and this beer is 7% alcohol. All right.
Oh,
so I would
than normal.
advise yes. Okay, and it's high octane stuff. All right, basically. But this, we taste all of our beers in the aging process to make sure that they're proper. And then
That's
we'll
for the
take,
professionals.
We'll
They know how
take
to
that
drive
water.
home.
We'll take that Plato water, and we brew at high gravity. It gives you a smoother beer, better access to. And then we'll take Plato water and make it pure tasteless, and then we'll blend it in to get precisely the right amount of alcohol.
All right.
Product. So
Stay with us. We got a video coming up. Thanks to the folks here at Yuengling. I'm going back to the office to take a nap, and Jack's going to finish drinking all the rest of it. Since his morning show is done already, it's Friday.
through work.
He can relax. We'll see you in just a minute. Stay with us.
We're at Southern Brewing and Winemaking. We're at 4500 North Nebraska Avenue. It's located in Southeast Seminole Heights. And we picked this building out about 2 years ago. We just absolutely fell in love with it. It was very run down, but we saw amazing potential for it for both the space as well as the neighborhood. And it's just, it's quite a community. So we're fortunate to have found this place. But right now, the homebrew shop is our focus. We're having just tremendous fun with it. And we also started a small brewery, which just supplies, which is just sold here at the tasting room. For the beginning stage brewers, we offer everything you need to get started. And as you progress and as you advance, you'll find we have the largest selection of grains and hops in the Southeast. We have 110 different grains and 50 varieties of hops. And for those people, we have absolutely everything you could think of that you need to brew at home. A new home brewer comes in here, he's going to be greeted by very knowledgeable staff. It's a requirement of ours for anybody that works for us to be brewing for at least 2 years. And to help out, we'll also have classes on a regular basis. We'll have Intro to Brewing, which is the most basic, where you start out brewing at home. So along this wall over here, we have our wine kits. So for making wine at home, it's actually a very simple process, and you can make very high quality wines. So we have some nice fruit wines that are as little as $40 that makes 5 gallons, up to the higher end kits, which are $200. We also have an amazing selection of draft equipment. So not only do our customers like to brew the beer, they like to serve it. So everything you need to make your own home dispensing system, all your kegging needs, and pretty much anything you can think of that you need to do with the beer, we have it here. All of the beers that we brew here are only available at our tasting room. We do offer growlers to go, which a growler is a jug that we fill from our tap, and you can take it home and enjoy it with your family or friends. So we have on tap about 16 of our own beers at any given time. We have 3 ciders and meads on tap most times. We also have 1 to 3 different types of soda on tap. And every Thursday we have a new beer, something different we haven't tried before, and something that doesn't stay on tap very long. We're pet friendly as well. That mostly means dogs. So we have quite a few dogs hang out in the beer garden. And we also have food trucks come in on a regular basis and live music outside. This is truly an amazing hobby because it attracts so many different types of people. You can approach the hobby from so many angles. It's the engineer type person. Just there's so many different pieces of equipment and how you set up your system, and process. I'm a big process guy. I love tinkering and how can I make things move better and be more efficient. Then you've got the scientist guy who you can get into the chemistry of the beer, and we have a mini laboratory in the back where we're looking at yeast cells under a microscope and whatnot. And then there's the chef type person who's just likes mixing a bunch of different stuff together and see how it turns out. It's for pretty much every personality out there. There's an aspect of brewing that you can really explore and enjoy. And I guess the bottom line though is you have amazing beer. For most of our customers, it's the sharing as well. We have very active homebrew clubs in the area. A couple of them meet here at our shop, and that's a point where they come together, they just talk beer, they're sharing beer, and it's such a social hobby that brings all different types together. Let me take you in the back and show you what we have going on right now. We have 2 batches going on our system. Rick and Tyler are back there working away, so come on with me. Yeah, today is actually a really special brew day for us. We're doing a double batch of our Moonraker Imperial Stout, which is then going to be barrel aged, and it's going to be the first beer that we're going to bottle. So we're going to have a special release party along with our 5-year anniversary in the end of October. It was about 2 hours ago we started our first batch. We're just getting ready to start the second batch, but in this process here, we're doing what's called lautering. We have the grain mixed in here, and it's kind of like a big coffee filter. So we spray water on top of the grain, it rinses through the grain, collects all the sugar, and then we pump it into the kettle. So we have about 100 pounds of grain in here, and here in the kettle, we're up to about 20 gallons, and we'll fill this up to 40 gallons, at which point we'll boil it for an hour and a half, and then cool it down and add the yeast. Right now we're getting ready to mash in. We have our what's called our strike water up in the kettle. That's at a very specific temperature. When we mix that water with the grain, we're looking for a temperature within a 1 to 2 degree difference. That's going to determine how the enzymes in the grain breaks down the starches. So a beer can either be more fermentable or less fermentable depending on the temperature that we mix it. So here we're mashing in, which means mixing the grain with the hot water. And what's going to happen next is the enzymes in the grain are going to convert the starches into fermentable sugars. So it's going to be like an oatmeal type consistency when it's done. This is the best part of the brew. Mashing in is what you thoroughly enjoy. From start to finish in the brew house, it takes 4 hours. Once that's done, it takes another 7 to 14 days in the fermenter, and then another 7 to 14 days in the conditioning tank, where the beer is aging in the cold room. We're in our fermentation room. We have 9 one-barrel fermenters. This is where we add the yeast, and they're temperature controlled for different types of beers. They'll ferment at different temperatures. And this is where it'll take roughly 7 to 14 days for the yeast to ferment all the sugars, make the alcohol, and then we also give it time to settle the yeast out before it gets transferred into the conditioning tanks.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money.
Jack, this was a great show.
Oh, I've enjoyed this one as much as any we've ever done together.
We have indeed. If only we can combine the cigar manufacturers and the beer manufacturers, you and
Do
I.
them in one big show.
You and I would be set for a long time. Our wives may
certainly
have
would.
something to say about it when we get home.
I might have trouble driving home from a mayor's hour.
Yeah, I know. Wouldn't that be something?
Hey, I've got to tell you about, my son is in graduate school at FSU in urban planning, and they had an urban planning conference in Orlando last week, and he texted me from there, and he said, in this seminar they were doing, he said they just did, and people from all over the state, he said they just did a 30-minute thing about Bob Buckhorn and the mayor of Tampa and all of the things he's doing here and blah, blah, blah. He said it was a 30-minute pay-in to you. It was unbelievable. I haven't had a chance to quiz him on what did you all talk about.
Obviously, my mother was running the event. You know, it's nice, Jack. I got a lot of people that make me look good, but I think the reality is we are being recognized all over the country as a city that's on the move, a city that's on fire. We saw some numbers just yesterday about the number of young people, unmarried folks that are moving to Tampa. And I think that's exactly what you and I talk about every week, is to get that intellectual capital, to get those best and brightest kids coming here. And it's things like Cigar City. It's things like a downtown that's hip. You know, it's things about having entertainment where they can come and drink Yuengling products.
Yep.
Tampa's on fire. People don't realize it. This is our time.
This is the place to be. It really is. I mean, it's exploded. The Republican National Convention helped so much, Super Bowls and things like that.
Bollywood coming
up. Now
up.
you got Bollywood and more than any city per capita in the country by a long shot.
And we're on a roll.
We are that.
You and I are going to be doing this for a little while longer.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Jack, thanks as always. This is the 43rd anniversary of the day Jack Harris stepped foot in Tampa, Florida.
1970.
And 2 days ago, was it? It was his birthday. He was also 43.
Yeah, 43.
So to my 43-year-old partner in crime, 43 years in Tampa, 43 years old, join us next month for another Mayor's Hour. I'm going home to take a nap. Jack's going home to take a nap. He's going to have to explain to my wife why I was drinking at 11 o'clock in the morning, but it's all good.
Definitely so. It was for a cause, the Mayor's Hour.
Absolutely, the Mayor's Hour. I did it for the team, honey. We'll see you next month.